Hey everybody, I have another lesson for you. Today we're talking about key changes, modulating from one key to another in your song. This is something a bunch of people just asked me about, so I thought I'd do a video on it. Now, this is not intended to cover every possible way you can do a key change, but I thought what might be helpful is to show you an example of a song where I did a key change and we can talk about the elements that went into it and how and why it works. All right, let's check it out. So this little piece is only 8 bars long, but it starts off in the key of C major, and at the end finishes in the key of B flat major. So let me play it for you so you know what we're talking about. It goes like this. All right, there you go. So let's talk about this. We've got the first 3 bars of this song are basically just establishing that we are in the key of C, right? C, D minor, E minor, F, C, D minor again. All right, skip that next bar for a second, and then the last 4 bars are basically establishing that now we are in B flat, right? This bit goes like this. Right, B flat, E flat, G flat, E flat, G minor, F, E flat, minor major 7, B flat, right? So first bit's in C, second bit is in B flat. What we're really going to spend most of our time talking about is that little bit in the middle of how did we get from here to there. All right, let's do it. All right, so let me play that little part in the middle where we change from one key to the other. And let's talk about it. So we're starting with C, D minor, E flat major 7 to F major, which takes us to this B flat. Okay, so one of the most common ways to change keys, right, common device to use, is before we hit that new tonic chord, in this case the B flat, we're going to set it up before the B flat by playing the 5 chord, right? So if you don't know what that means, it means we're going to go up a 5th from the B flat, right? That's where we're going. And we go, if you know your major scale, it's the 5th note, whatever that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one. That's an F. So we're going to play an F major chord before the B flat. Right? You can hear how that can lead us to there. Okay? Also, to add a little bit of extra tension and extra juice to it, we can change that 5 chord, F, to an F7. We can add the 7th, right? Make it a dominant 7th. Right? You can hear that tension that is pulling us towards that B flat chord, right? And that's exactly what happens in our little tune, right? So when I'm at the end of the 4th bar there, the melody hits this E flat note, which briefly kind of transforms the F chord to an F dominant 7th, which leads us very nicely towards that B flat, right? Which is where we're going. All right, the next thing is very similar is the same way we prepared for that B flat by doing the dominant chord, right? The 5 chord, that's what we call the dominant. They've all got these fancy names, right? We can prepare for the dominant chord by using a subdominant chord, okay, which is going to be usually the 2 chord or the 4 chord. So 2 chord is minor. So if it was a 2, you probably heard of a 2-5-1, right? So a 2 chord in B flat, the 2 chord is the C minor. So if I did the C minor before the F into the B flat, you hear that sound. Right, it's a pretty common sound. You could put like alterations in there, and it starts to sound very jazzy. So that's a 2 to 5 to 1, really common. In this case, I'm not using the 2, I'm using the 4 chord, in this case, which is an E flat major. And if we had the 7th, it's an E flat major 7th. So have a listen to this sound, right? F. You can already tell where it's going to go, right? You can hear it in your head. There, right? So we're setting this up. 4 leads us to that 5, which is taking us to the 1. Okay, so I got this 4, 5, 1. E flat major 7, F, F7, 1, E flat. Okay, and the next thing I want to touch on, and really this could have been the first point, is the choice of key in the first place. Like as in, why are we going to B flat and not G or whatever? So there are a few reasons that you may choose a particular key. One might be instrumentation specific, like a guitar player may prefer improvising over a blues in A, and the keyboard player is more comfortable playing blues in A flat, you know, so maybe one solo is in one key and then we change for another or something like that. Another might be vocal range. You know, you see this a lot in those like Disney duets, like A Whole New World or whatever, where the female vocal range, male vocal range, very different. So they'll have one key for this verse and then they'll change for the second verse. So that might be a consideration for what key you're choosing. But in this case, I'm just playing guitar. But it's still worth considering because some keys are going to be easier to change to than others. Okay? So we can choose our key based on what kind of result we want. All right? So probably the easiest way to look at this is to check out the good old trusty circle of fifths, right? You guys have seen this thing. Basically, the closer the two keys are to each other, the more stuff they have in common, the more closely they're related. And the further they are from each other, the less things they have in common. Okay? So check this out. C is right next to F, right? C major, F major. These two keys share 6 out of 7 notes, and actually 4 out of the 7 chords that come from that key. So pretty closely related. B flat, which is the key we're talking about here, is also fairly close to C, right? They actually share 5 out of the 7 notes and 2 out of the 7 chords, okay? So if we look at the chords of C major and the chords of B flat major side by side, we can see that they both have a D minor and they both have an F major chord, okay? So why is this important? Well, it brings me to the next point, pivot chords. So what the hell are pivot chords? Okay, a pivot chord is a chord that is diatonic to both keys, the one we're coming from and the one we're going to, right? It's a chord that is in C major and a chord that's in B flat major. So in this case, D minor is in both keys, right? So we can use D minor to kind of slowly morph us from one key to the other, right? We can be in key of C, key of C, key of C, hit D minor, and then that slowly kind of now taking us to B flat. Let's just look at it in the song, right? So in that second line there, we're going C to D minor, which is 1-2 progression in the key of C major. But if I go D minor to E flat major, that is also a 3-4 progression in the key of B flat, right? So that D minor is kind of doing two things at once, right? It's the 2 chord of one key, but it's also the 3 chord of the next key, right? So it's helping us get from here to there in a smooth manner, okay? Does that make sense? The other thing I want to talk about is this F major chord over here, okay? Because of that E flat that comes before it, this F being a pivot chord might look a little bit more obscured, but to me, it still is a pivot chord. Let me show you what I mean, okay? Remember, F is in both keys, right? F is in the key of C, F is in the key of B flat, okay? F is the 4 chord of C, F is the 5 chord of B flat. So we're in both, it's in both keys. But I want to just show you something. Let's just listen to it, right? So here's what we did, right? C, D minor, E flat major 7 to the F, and we went to B flat. Okay, but now I want to play it for you so you can hear what if we didn't go to B flat, but instead we just went right back to C. Okay, so we went C, D minor, E flat major 7, F, back to C. Sounds fine, right? See what I mean? That F can take us back to C if we want, or it can take us to B flat. So to me, that is still a pivot chord, right? So we have used not one, but 2 pivot chords in this tune. All right, next thing. Let's go back and take a look at that E flat major 7 chord for just a second. This chord, remember, is in the key of B flat, but this chord also comes from the key of C minor, okay? C natural minor. And why does this matter? Is because you can use the chords from C minor in C major, right? This is called borrowed chords. Now, I don't want to get too far off the rails here, so this is my 20-second explanation of what borrowed chords are, is you can borrow a chord from C minor and use it in C major, and vice versa. You can take chords from C major, use it in C minor, right? Because even though these are different things, C major, C minor, they both revolve around C, right? They both are kind of under the umbrella of C things, C major, C minor. So they're sort of part of the same family. Let's think of it like that. Okay, so you can borrow chords one way or another. So I think that this is one of the reasons why when we hit that E flat major 7, it also sounds quite smooth, right? Because of the relationship between C minor and C major, right? That chord, okay? So I just want you to see all the different relationships between these things, how it all ties together, okay? All right, next, right? Can you tell, by the way, that I've like shoehorned like a ton of stuff into this one tiny little bar and a half of music so that I can explain it to you. All right, I'm not done yet, by the way. We got a couple more things to talk about. The next thing is this melody. Okay, so listen to the melody in the first line, right? Right, that bit there. And it lands on this G, right? On top of a E minor chord. And goes to F, right? That G. And the second time through, it does this. Same note, G. So even though I'm changing chords, that melody note remains the same. Okay? So another reason this is a smooth transition is because that note is not surprising. In fact, that note is expected because you already heard it the first time, right? So you're kind of expecting it to come back again. So the first time that G was a chord tone of E minor, and the second time through, the G is still a chord tone of E flat major 7. Okay, so this gives us like a cohesive thread from the first part to here, right? So our ear expects to hear that note, and it does, which makes that when I'm taking this chord from outside the key, less shocking, okay? Because we have that common thread from the first melody phrase to the second, right? Right? Does that make sense? All right. While we're talking about the melody, one more thing that I want to mention is voice leading, right? So we are another topic that could take up hours of discussion, but my, again, 20-second explanation of what is voice leading is, what we're talking about is moving in very short distances, okay? Major seconds, minor seconds, whole steps, half steps, things like that. So, like for instance this, have a listen. Right, you can hear this. Ba, ba, ba. They're all in a row in a nice, neat line. Whereas if I went... that's still a B flat major chord, just like this was, but it doesn't sound as strong because the way I'm voicing it is, instead of getting that, I get, right? It's not as strong and as smooth to do that, right? So when we keep things in small distances, it sounds very smooth and it sounds like it's going where you expect it to go. So we don't do that in our tune, we go like this. You can already hear where it's kind of wanting to go, right? To there. To this D. Right? So that, look, voice leading, there's way more to it than what I just said, right? But for our purposes here, that's probably enough, right? Just think of moving in short distances. All right, one other thing that I just want to mention, because as I'm talking about all this stuff, I'm kind of hearing all the questions I've had over the years when I've been teaching this to other people. And I just want to clarify one thing. So when we're talking about voice leading and moving in small distances, major second, minor second, whole steps, half steps, small distances, What I'm talking about is the distance between the notes, the distance between the pitch, the sound that you hear, not necessarily the distance between frets on a guitar. This is something I've seen trip people up over and over, right? So I just want to clarify this. So you may have heard like a half step is like a 1 fret distance from here to there. And a whole step is this distance, 2 frets, right? And that's fine. But what it's really trying to tell us is it's the distance between this note and this note. Like the sound, the distance between and right? That is a half step. So yes, it is 1 fret if I play it both notes on the same string, but that's not always going to be the case, right? I could go D to E flat there. So even though I've jumped up, that's still a half step because the sound, listen to the notes, ba, ba, all half steps. Even this one, right? Even though I'm jumping all this way, the sound is only going up a half step. I'm going from D to E flat. D to E flat. D to E flat. Right? So when you hear me or you hear people talk about whole steps, half steps, major third, minor third, whatever, most of the time we're talking about the distance between 2 notes, like the pitch and the sound that you hear, not necessarily frets, okay? Right, so if we take a look at our transcription here, and let's specifically look at the tab. Here you're going to see 1, then a 4, then a 7, okay? So it looks like, if we only look at tab, it kind of looks like we're jumping up 3 frets, and then we're jumping up another 3 frets, from 1 to 4, then from 4 to 7. And we're moving up the neck. And of course, that is what the tab's telling us. That is what we're doing. But it may not be immediately clear, depending on how well you know the fretboard and how well you can read tab. But if we go up and look at the standard notation, which tells us the pitch and the actual notes, you can see we've got F, E flat, D, and you can see how close those notes are together, and also that they are descending. We're going down, right? So even though I'm going 1, 4, 7 frets, the sound is going down really close distances, right? F to E flat, it's a whole step. E flat to D, it's a half step, right? So even though it looks like I'm jumping around, well, because I am, the sound is what we're talking about, that pitch, okay? So voice leading is about the pitch of the notes, okay? Get that? F, E flat, D here. If I did on one string, it looks like this. So you can see it's really close together. We're just playing the notes like this. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because I've seen that question come up quite a lot. And I know at least one person that's watching this video is going to be glad I mentioned it, okay? All right, so you can see we got a lot of elements working together in this song, right? We've chosen a key that has some chords in common and has a lot of notes in common, so we can keep that melody together. We can use pivot chords, in fact, 2 of them. Like we said, that E flat major 7 has a relationship to C minor, C major, C minor. There's that parallel relationship to that chord. We've prepared the B flat with the 5 chord, the F, and made it even stronger by turning it into an F7, right? Making it a dominant 7th chord. We've prepared that 5 chord by using the 4 chord before it, 4, 5, 1. Very smooth transition that you've heard a ton of times in music. So, we end up with a pretty smooth transition, I think, in this piece of music. Now, I just do want to clarify something, is having a smooth key change doesn't mean that that's the right way of doing it. Doesn't mean that that's the better way. There is no right or wrong in writing music. It's whatever you want, right? You may want a key change that sounds much more surprising and challenging, in which case you may want to avoid some of these things because it sounds too smooth, right? It's up to you, right? There's no right or wrong. This is one example of changing key in a song and how I did it and what I put into it, and you can see the result, and you can take any parts you like from it and any parts you don't and do your own thing, okay? The way I always look at this stuff is it's building your compositional toolbox, and just like any other toolbox, just because the tool is there, you don't have to use it, okay? You may write 25 songs and never do this at all, but maybe that next song, this is what it's called for, and you can reach into your toolbox and go to work, okay? So there we go. Let me know what you thought of this lesson. I'd love to know, like, what was, out of all the elements that we put into this piece, which one was your favorite, or which one was the most new to you that you'd never heard about before? I'd love to know that kind of stuff. And hopefully you can take this and write your own music, because that's what it's all about. And there you go. Oh, by the way, you can download this. I'll put a link in the description, but if you are interested in this is the transcription I was just looking at, and I'll put it on my website. You can just download that if you want to reference it. There you go. Thanks for spending some time with me. Take care. I'll catch you next time.